welcome to today's reading lesson. Let's get right into it. So the first thing we're going to do is our vocabulary. So how that works is I say the vocab word, you say the vocab word, and then I give you a definition and an example. Think you can do it? All right, let's go. Our first word is spoon. Say spoon. Spoon. When you spoon food, you pick it up with a spoon. Spoon. So I could say, I spoon my pudding into my mouth. Spoon. Our next word is against. Please say against. If one thing is used against another, it keeps something from being harmed. So, for example, if I were a wizard, I could use a protection spell against a bad guy. Please say against. Against, good job. Our next word is churn. Say churn. Churn. When you churn something, you stir it quickly for a long time. So this is how I would churn butter. I would have to churn the butter to make it. Churn. Our next word is stock. Say stock. Good job, stock. When you stock something, you fill it up with things. So when your mom or dad or grandma or grandpa or uncle or aunt or whoever goes grocery shopping, they have to stock your fridge, which means they fill your fridge with nice, yummy foods, drinks. They stock it. And our last word is heal. Say heal. Heal. When doctors heal sick or hurt people, they help them get better or feel well. Heal. All right, now that we've got those, let's get right into our reading. We're going to be reading a story today called Who Put the Cookies in the Jar? But first, we have to know what we are reading for. So let's go over our anchor chart. Our anchor chart for today is ask and answer questions. Ask and answer questions. These are the questions: who, what, where, when, why, how. What do you mean you didn't get that? I said who, what, where, when, why, how. Slow down. Fine. I'll slow down. You know how fast I like to go. These are some questions that you should ask yourself while you read. Who? Who is in the story? What? What is happening in the story? What are they doing? Where is the story taking place? Is it in the ocean? Is it on land? When? When is the story happening? Is it at nighttime? Is it at day? Is it in the morning? How? However, we only have a few ones here, which are when. So they want us to ask and answer questions before we read, while we read, and after we read. Now, why would we do that? It's very simple, and it's actually extremely helpful as well. Why would we ask ourselves questions before, during, and after we read? Well, to get information, to help us understand the text, to practice being awake and thinking while we read, and to be curious and wonder as we read. You should always be asking yourself questions while you read, and before you read, and after you read as well. How? We're going to use those question words that I said to ask ourselves. Who, what, where, when, why, how. Who, what, where, when, why, how. All those questions we have to try to ask ourselves. But in this story specifically, we're focusing on when, why, and how. So we're going to look around in our story, in the pictures and the words, for evidence or details to help us answer our questions. Does that sound good? All right, you should already have your green My Book out, and we're going to be on page 118. 118. Let me move my camera down there for you. Page 118. Pause if you need a second to get there. I'm going to start us off. Pause if you are not ready. This story is an informational text. Informational texts are nonfiction. They give us facts about a topic. So it might be a fact about the world or the ways pictures and words give us information about the topic. We're going to ask ourselves questions before, during, and after we read to help us understand the story and get that information. We're going to look for evidence in our text, so the story, the pictures, the words, to help us answer those questions. So our story is called, Who Put the Cookies in the Jar? Ooh, I'm sorry. Who Put the Cookies in the Cookie Jar? By George Shannon. Turn that page and let's get started. Put your finger on that first word and follow along with me. Ready? One hand in the cookie jar takes a cookie out. How many hands put the cookie in is what the world's about. What does the author mean when he says, how many hands put the cookie in? I want you to pause the video and think about that for a second. What does the author mean when he says, how many hands put the cookie in? What questions do you have about the story so far? Be thinking about that as we read. What questions is this story bringing up? What do you want to know? All right, let's see. Keep those answers in your head. We are on page 122. I expect that you're ready to follow along, putting your finger on that first word. Hands that mix and stir the dough. Spoon the clumps into a row. There's one of our power words. Hands that make the cookie sheet. Oven mitts against the heat. So this part of the story is about making cookies, but all the different parts of it. It's much more complicated than just making the cookie. You can't make the cookie without the pan in which the man made. And you can't get the pan out of the oven without the oven mitt that the woman made. There are so many pieces of it. We're on page 124. Follow along. Hands that feed and milk the cow. Churn the butter, guide the plow. So also to make the cookies, we need milk from the cow, which means there has to be a farmer. And we also need another farmer to churn the butter and to guide the plow in the fields. All of this to make cookies. This page especially is all to make butter, which is made from stirring milk. And butter is an ingredient in cookies. It's much more complicated. It's much more difficult than just plopping the cookies in the oven. We have to think about, where did the cookie come from? Where did the pan come from? Who made the oven mitt? Who bought and made all of the ingredients in our cookies, like the chocolate chips and the sugar and the dough? While I read the text, I think of questions that I have about it. I use question words such as who, what, where, when, why, or how. For example, I might ask myself, why is the woman plowing the field? Then I would look for evidence or keep reading to answer my question. Let's see. Turn the page to page 126. Here we go. Hands that sow and grind the wheat into flour for us to eat. Hands that tend and feed the hens, gather eggs, build the pens. So again, these are all the little steps that are needed to make cookies. Hands that harvest sugarcane, cut and grind, load the train. What do you learn about from these 2 pages? How to make sugar, right? First, they have to chop the sugar cane, and then they have to put the sugar cane through a machine that grinds it, and that's just how you make one ingredient of cookies. Turn the page to page 130, which is a 1, a 3, and a 0. Remember, you can always pause me if I'm moving too fast. Do not feel overwhelmed. Just go ahead and take a pause. Hands that load the trucks and drive, stock the shelves when things arrived. So now the people at the store, the people who work at the store, are stocking the shelves. So that means they're putting things on the shelves like milk, butter, flour, eggs, sugar, all of those ingredients that we need to make cookies. So that's another group of people that we need to make cookies. The shop workers who put out all the ingredients after they're made. Page 132. Hands that clothe and feed them all, heal and teach, large and small. Hands that help, the hands that help are what the world's about. So the point of this, friends, is that we all have to come together. Let's see how we finish our story. Many put the cookie in, so one person can take it out. So we saw about 15 to 20 people who were involved in the process of making the cookies and making sure we had all the ingredients to make the cookies, just so one person can have and enjoy a cookie as a treat. Wow. After I read the story, I like to think about why the author wrote the story. So I often ask myself, what did I learn from reading this text? I think about what I read to help me answer that question. I think from this story, the author wants me to understand that many people must work together in order for us to enjoy making and eating cookies. It's a very valuable lesson, my friends. And then we have a recipe to make sugar cookies after we just saw however many people we did it. So if you go home and you say, hey, I want to make cookies, and maybe you and your family decide to make them, you can tell them about all the different people that it took for you to get even the ingredients to make those cookies. So the person that shucked the sugar cane and tore it up, and the farmers that churned the butter and milked the cow. There are so many different pieces about it. So what I want you to do is, I want you to open your notebook, or on a piece of paper if you're in Miss Meadows' class, but in my class, in your composition notebook. I want you to draw a picture of one of the jobs that someone in the story did to make a cookie. All of the different jobs that were included. Pick one that you want to draw a picture of. So you could do the farmer that milked the cow. You could do the woman who farmed the sugar cane. You could do the woman who split up the sugar cane to make into sugar. You could do the man who makes the flour. You could do the man who makes the cookie pan. You could draw the workers at the store who stocked the shelves with the ingredients. You could draw the woman who made the oven mitt to put the pan into the oven. There are so many options. So what I want you to do now is pause the video and draw a picture of one of those jobs, just one part out of all of the jobs that it took to make one cookie for one person to eat. Go ahead, draw that picture, raise your hand, have your teacher check it. And you are not done until your teacher checks it. But after that, you're all done. So I hope you guys enjoyed this story. I sure did. And I will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.